Welcome back. In today's video, we will be talking about how to download Gutenberg texts from Project Gutenberg's website so that we can use these texts in our code. The first thing you will notice is that I have a few lines of code already on my screen. These are lines of code we have learned in previous videos, and because I am starting a new session with this video, I am going to quickly run these lines of code to make sure all of the packages I need that are necessary for this instructional video are loaded and ready to go. Perfect. Now that my packages have been installed or loaded into my library and are ready for use, we can start talking about Project Gutenberg texts. Since we have installed the Gutenberger package and added it to our library, we can now use the view function with Gutenberg R to look at a number of different things. First, let's use the view function to look at something called Gutenberg's metadata. So to do that, we will type Gutenberg, and you will see that a bunch of different options pop up. Today, we want to look at this data set, the Gutenberg metadata. Running this line of code, you will see the metadata appear. If we make this bigger so that we can look at it, you will see that this first column has a bunch of different numbers titled the Gutenberg ID, the title of the novel or other work, the author, the author's ID number, the language that the work is in, which bookshelf it is on, so sort of the genre, and the rights, and whether or not this book has text. When you pull up the Gutenberg metadata, it is really pulling up every single piece of data that Gutenberg has on its website. If we look down here, it is telling us that there are 51,997 entries. That is how many different works are on Project Gutenberg. To better understand Project Gutenberg and how it works, take a minute to go to the Project Gutenberg website, www.gutenberg.org. On the home page, you will see that you can search the database for different texts. And if you search for a few different books, such as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you will see that Project Gutenberg actually contains a few different versions of that text. This is common for many popular books such as Frankenstein. So whenever you are deciding to work with a novel, make sure you have the correct edition that you would like to be using as you download it off of Project Gutenberg. We will show you how this is done in just a minute. Take note also that some of the books on the Project Gutenberg website are audiobooks, so make sure that when you're downloading a book into your RStudio, you are downloading one with written text and not an audiobook. Now, let's say we want to start filtering our data in this metadata for a specific text. You will see up here that there is a search window, but it's not very reliable at all, so we recommend that you always use the code in order to find the specific book you are looking for. Going back to our code, the first thing we will do is combine a few functions. First, we will type the type of data that we want to look at. So we will write Gutenberg metadata, and then we are going to use something called the pipe operator. The pipe operator is a %sign, a caret, and another %sign. This pipe operator essentially reads as and then. So what we are saying with this line of code is look at the Gutenberg metadata and then do something else. In this case, we want to filter. So we will use our filter function, and then we are going to filter by title. So we are going to filter by title, use a double equal sign to say exactly, and then in quotations, our title. Today, we're going to look at Hamlet. So before we go any further, let's go over these two lines of code to make sure we understand what they mean. First, we are telling the computer to look for the Gutenberg metadata, which has been loaded through our Gutenberg R library. Then, using the pipe operator, we are saying, look at this data, and then filter that data for specifically the title Hamlet. When we run this line of code, you will see that something appears down in our console. Here, it is very similar to the columns of our Gutenberg metadata, but you will notice that there are less rows because we are only looking at the title, Hamlet. If you look closer, you will see that 2 of these are in English and 2 of them are in French. Again, this is something important to note when you are searching for your text to use, because you want to make sure you are using a text in the correct language you are working with. Before we go any further, keep in mind that you must use a double equal sign in this line of code, because this double equal sign is saying is exactly, or it is showing equality. This is the only way that the code will know to look for exactly this phrase. Using a single equal sign will give you an error. If we look at this output, it tells us that it is a tibble. Essentially, what this is a tiny table. Tibble is a specific data set, and later on, when you get into more advanced coding, you might have to convert between data sets, so it is always important to keep in mind what type of data you are working with. Because we can see that Project Gutenberg has 4 different kinds of Hamlet, we want to search for specifically one Hamlet. In order to do this, let's go back to our code and select something even more specific. To download, we are going to use another function called the Gutenberg download. Notice here when all of these options pop up, a square like this or a rectangle like this in a sort of diagonal fashion is some sort of function, while these tables or charts here indicate data sets. So you can see that there is a data set for authors, the metadata, the subjects, while Gutenberg download, Gutenberg get mirror, and Gutenberg strip are all functions that you can use. So we will use the Gutenberg download, and then we will type in the number of the Hamlet we want specifically. Let's search for this Hamlet here. So in these parentheses, we will search 1787, and we will run that line of code. This is the code you will run for whichever book you want to download specifically. So you can always run a filter for your title and then choose a number, or the Project Gutenberg website also indicates all of these numbers, so you can find the number of the novel you want on the website and add it to your code here. Now that we've downloaded the book, let's see what happened. If we look here, we will see our Gutenberg number or our Gutenberg ID on the side, and then starting right away is the text. You can see that there's 5,000 more rows after this. Right now, our data is not really usable because it's only appearing in our console, and we don't really have any data here in our global environment. So to fix this, we are going to use a variable. Let's call this variable Hamlet. And when we use our assignment operator, we will do the same function. So we will say Hamlet becomes the Gutenberg download of the number 1787. When we do this, our data set now appears in our global environment. We can either use the view function, like so, or double click on our data to have it appear up top. We can see all of this introductory words, and if we continue scrolling down, eventually we will get to the text itself. Here we can see, because Hamlet is a play, we can see all of the characters listed out. And now Act 1, Scene 1, and the play itself. Congratulations! You have now downloaded your first play into RStudio. Check back in the next video to start learning the functions we can use to analyze these novels and plays.